First and foremost is the Nagaland government's stand, official stand, on the Uniform Civil Code. The 22nd Law Commission has notified on the 14th of June, giving us a 1 month's time up to the 14th of July, but they have extended the period seeking opinions and responses from the people of this country. They've extended it up to the 28th, which will expire in a few days from now. And you are aware, I have issued a press statement of the government's visit to New Delhi and responses that we have received from our central leaders in connection to other issues also. So we have made this statement on the, not a statement, but this submission to the Law Commission on the 4th of July. We had to throw some light on the background history of our people whenever we have encountered and came across different authorities who had come in our land. The first was the British Empire in the middle of the 19th century, and how after stiff resistance from our people, our ancestors, after so many lives were lost, so many battles were fought on both sides, we have lost precious lives. Finally, with the No More Wars Treaty, we have had a peaceful situation in our land, and understanding was restored, and we had been working with them for some time. From then on, they were the first people to have set foot in our land. We have always stood our grounds and maintained to the authority that they should not interfere into our internal ways of life in the different aspects of our life, that is, the religious, the social, the customary practices, and not to exploit our land. So after having agreed on these aspects only, we cooperated and worked together with these authorities. They had also kept their word, never interfered into our ways of lives, never exploited our land. And you have seen, in 1873, the Bengal Eastern Frontiers Regulation Act was enacted by the British Parliament, which brought about the inner line permit concept. So with this, they went further on, and as we are different from the rest of our surroundings, especially the mainland India today, they have kept us outside of the reform scheme in 1935 and placed us under the excluded area, excluded and partially excluded areas under the reform scheme of 1935. So this continued, and we were protected under the clauses and provisions of the Biafra. And in the transition, when in 1947, the British Empire was about to leave the shores of our continent, liberating India as a nation. On the eve of the independence of India, our elders knew that the shift of power and authority was about to take place. So our leaders met. The government of India, who was represented by Sir Akbar Hydari, and entered into a 9 points agreement. Popularly, we know it as a 9 points agreement. This was in June 1947, just 2 months away from India's independence. So even there, when you study the points, it is all about not interfering into our ways of life, in the social, religious, and customary practices of our people, and that our land should be protected against any form of exploitation by continuing with this Bengal Eastern Frontiers Regulation Act of 1873 and strictly impose the inner line permit. So this went on. That was our first agreement with the authorities of present-day India. Unfortunately, this period of disagreement did not last very long for reasons on both sides, which I don't want to delve into the details. You know history better than me, so you'll find it in the documents. So this unfortunate breakdown of the understanding led to such a situation where the entire region, present-day northeastern hills, this region with the epicenter in that time, Naga Hills, it turned into a war zone. There was conflict, severe conflict, and we have lost many precious lives, again on both sides. So after so much civilian casualties, it turned out to be a human crisis. So both sides declared a general amnesty in 1957. Taking advantage of this period, many social leaders, tribal leaders, many administrative officers, and educated people have tried to restore normalcy, side by side, persuade our political leaders of those years to try and come to an understanding. But even after 3 years of persuasion, hectic parleys, negotiations, they refused to come for any kind of talks across the table at their level. So the situation having turned into a human crisis and civilians being the casualties, responsible tribal leaders could not simply turn a blind eye and remain silent. So they undertook to themselves that they have to organize themselves into a certain body, and under one temporary umbrella, they had to do something to broker peace. So the tribal leaders, the Naga tribal leaders of present-day Nagaland, they organized themselves and they started negotiating with the government of India. After many years of negotiation, they formulated the 16 points, that these will be the points which they will negotiate with the government of India, and if they agree to recognize our history, and our struggles through ages, then maybe some kind of understanding can be reached. And that was when they had agreed. In 1960, in July 1960, the government of India agreed to their memorandum representation, which again broadly is centered around the non-interference policy, which the past authorities have been negotiating with our people, that this should be upheld. The protection, ownership of the land and its resources, that our ways of life will not be interfered in the aspects of the religious practices or social practices or the customary practices, the laws. This will be respected, and that no act of Parliament of India will be imposed directly on us unless the State Assembly of Nagaland, by a resolution, so decides to endorse. Now, that was the understanding. And so after the agreement was signed, about 2 years after that, 1962, the Parliament of India enacted the Article 371A and the provisions thereunder. So you're all very familiar with Article 371A, and it guarantees, the Constitution guarantees to the people of Nagaland that the center or the Union of India will not interfere into these aspects of our life along with the land. The ownerships will be recognized and upheld. So after that only, on the 1st of December 1963, we entered into the Union of India as the 16th state. And so we have been under the Union of India as a state ever since 1963, 1st December. We have always upheld this agreement and respected the clauses, the articles that have been given as a guarantee to us. But over the years, over the decades, I think certain things are not very right. Encroachments, infringements are taking place in the rights that have been guaranteed to us. And in many areas of our lives, we are beginning to resent this type of move. So besides other issues, particularly on the proposed enactment of the Uniform Civil Code, the UCC, our people has not accepted even the idea of such an enactment and implementation of the UCC in our part of the country, especially in our state. So having observed the sentiments of our people and the resentment against such kind of laws, if it is enacted, so many individuals, so many civil society organizations, so many tribal bodies, organizations have openly come out with statements that they will not accept the UCC on imposition on us. So after observing the sentiments of the people, the government of Nagaland today have found it necessary to place on record our own stand to the 22nd Law Commission dealing with this UCC. So that is where, as earlier I was citing, those aspects of our history had to be brought out again and presented to the present day generation of leaders, executives in the judiciary, in the legislature, and in the executives also. The first generation of the Indian leaders knew our situation because it was during their time that so many things have happened. All those which I narrated have happened. But we have realized that the second and third generation are not aware of things in this far corner of the country unless we throw some light on it and bring it in front of them again. That is why, in a very brief manner, in a nutshell, we have tried to present to them the realities of our history and the situation today. So the government stands by the people, and we have clearly mentioned there that we have so many other problems confronting us. In our 60 years journey as a state, it has not been an easy task. Successive leaders, successive governments have come and gone. And when we study our surroundings, we have so many internal as well as external problems confronting the state. So it would do well, the center would do well if they don't bring in so much more issues again to compound the situation with which the government is just managing. It's just managing. Ours is a very small state, one of the smallest states in the country, because we have been bifurcated into 4 states in this country also. And we have been bifurcated by the McMahon line, the international boundary. So across the country also we have our people, but as is the fact today, we are a small state in this country, but with a very small population also, comparatively. But our problems are much, much larger than some of the largest states, largest parts of this country. So we appealed to the government of India that they have to restrain themselves, review these decisions, and exempt our state from the purview of the UCC being conducted by the Law Commission of India. So here we were very much relieved when a person, no other than the Home Minister of India, the Union Home Minister himself, has in no uncertain terms told us that the government is actively considering for exemption of Christians and some tribal areas in the country from falling within the purview of the Law Commission this time. So that has come as a great relief, and we are hopeful that the government of India will stand by its word and its commitments to us and uphold the sanctity of the Article 371A once again. That is another issue which people want to know. And as you have rightly pointed out, prior to our visit in Delhi, say June, July of this year, it was a bilateral talk only, purely between the ENPO and the Ministry of Home Affairs, the MHA. And nobody meddled into it or interfered into the negotiations that were going on. But you will agree, whether it is Eastern, Western, Northern or Southern, it is a part of our state. The geopolitical jurisdiction falls under the government of Nagaland. And we have always been a part together, and we will continue to live as people together. But every citizen that is within the boundaries of our state are our citizens and our people. Their lives matter, their interests matter as much as any other citizen from any other part of the state matters. So the government of Nagaland had recommended to the government of India that such an entity, a new entity, can be arranged for the eastern part of our state if properly negotiated and agreed by all. This recommendation was about 12 years back, about 13 years, 2011. So the government have not stood in the way of the people's desire of the East. The government had facilitated and also recommended. So there is no reason why the state government should not be taken into confidence while negotiations are on for a part of this state. The government had never been adverse to this demand, to this movement. But over time, our people in the other parts of the state have become anxious, rightly so, of what is going on. Every responsible and enlightened citizen of the state deserves to know what is happening in any part of the state. So the government today have stepped up our participation and have tried to study the status of the talks with our Eastern brothers, the ENPO, to what extent they have reached. So here, the MHA, the Ministry of Home Affairs, and the ENPO both actually are at fault for sidelining and keeping the government of Nagaland and the rest of the people of Nagaland in the dark. Nobody is against it, but everyone is just concerned about the type of arrangements, the division of power, the structures, the status it will be given, the nomenclatures, and so on and so forth, all those issues connected with a new entity. We have to be transparent here. No secret deals behind our back. It is everybody's land. Every citizen accounts for the interest, the present and the future also, and is responsible, equally responsible. Now, why I say this, that they are right? Because it has two sides. While the rest of Nagaland has its best wishes and fullest support for for creation of such a new entity, we cannot leave the rest of the state and its people to linger in uncertainties. There will be consequences when a portion of our state and people are sliced out from the present-day state. There will be consequences upon the rest of the land and the people. So it is from this angle that the others also, and the state government also, has stepped in to check how things are going and to what extent it has reached. So I always tell you about social medias. These are notorious, mischievous, and many times unreliable. So somebody just writes something and just sneaks away. But the atmosphere, entire atmosphere is already spoiled. And it can vitiate the atmosphere to such an extent that it can stir up. You never know to what extent. No, I would not say that. Government of Nagaland in 2011 had already outlined the status and the structure. And a separate entity, a new entity, in any kind of structure with any kind of status may try to be arranged for these people who had a different kind of arrangement in the beginning when the state was born. That was the whole idea. Not state or union territory or territorial council, not like that. It was not specific. So even today, there are different opinions being floated that they should be given a frontier Nagaland state, Then if possible, if that is not possible, then a union territory. Now I think they are negotiating on something like an autonomous council or territorial council. These sort of things are there. So nothing is certain till now. Nothing is finalized. And for that matter, even the nomenclature has not been finalized. There were suggestions that it should be Naga. But here, if you stop at that, Naga, we have so many Nagas in different parts of this region and beyond the international border also. So taking cue from some autonomous bodies around us in the neighborhood, they always prominently project the state's name. So we will certainly insist that the word nomenclature should comprise of this word Nagaland, not Naga. That is where we are. So as for the status, as well as for the nomenclature and the structure, nothing is finalized. These are the issues we will negotiate.
Can you update us something about the municipal or the court case that is going with the Supreme Court on the municipal and town council act?
Municipal and town, our ULB. Yeah, that's an old issue which we have discussed earlier. I'll just complete the first question about Manipur. Okay? We'll come to this afterwards. Yeah. So here, I think the people who have their hands and their wings spread over to that part of the state should respond first. We have seen that some responsible citizens, like the elected members, belonging to certain communities have come. They have, in fact, met you, the press here. But I don't see much reason why they should come to another state to speak about their own state. Here, maybe it is because of the networks. Unless it is for that, I don't see much reason why they should bring their problems into another state. And for us, you see, the cause is something different. What caused all this situation? We go back to the Genesis. It is all about the ST status. Now, there are so many opinions which can be expressed from different directions. But that is ethnic-oriented, communal-oriented. So the cause is different. It may be right, it may be wrong. In the eyes of different people, different opinions. There we have nothing to say. And we leave it to the government of the day to handle, tackle, and manage their own situations. We are only a state. We cannot advise, lecture another state to manage its affair. We cannot. But that's a different thing, the cause. Where we come in is the means to achieve that cause. The means. Whatever may be the cause they are pursuing or trying to achieve, the means that they are adopting cannot be accepted. Cannot be accepted. And on one incident only, all the papers are screaming But so much more has happened before and after that also. The unfortunate case of some women folks being outraged, the modesty being outraged, is really inhuman. It's a crime against humanity altogether. And we don't care which part of the world this happened and for whatever reason it has happened. But this is not acceptable. Are the perpetrators human beings or not? That is our question. Those who have assaulted the women's, raped the women's, outraged their modesty, are they human beings or not? That is the question. So we should leave no stone unturned. They deserve no judgment also. Justice, I mean. They should be hunted down to the end of the world and in a befitting way, they should be handled. No mercy can be shown. Let it be in this part of the world or in any other part of the world. In present-day civilization, this is not acceptable. It should never have room in any society. So we are concerned, we're extremely concerned, we're keenly observing. Unfortunately, we don't have the powers to tell them what to do, what not to do. The government of Mizoram, I will not comment on what they are about to do, but as far as our government is concerned, I think we have not much.
What do you say about the Prime Minister is not speaking in the civil word except that incident?
Well, you see, have you ever questioned him or put up this question when the outing incident took place a few years back? Did the parliament react, the MPs in the parliaments react in this manner when our boys were shot down like dogs? Which Northeastern MP ever extended their support to us inside the house as well as outside the house? The highest authorities themselves behave like this. No, the world is partial. This is not the way. So today, a lot of things are going on in the country. But the unfortunate part is it takes a political color again and again. You will see. I am keenly watching and following the proceedings of the House. You watch. This will all turn into another political affair. And the real human problems and the situation will be left behind. This is the unfortunate part. It has happened, and I will not be surprised if it happens again. So the question here is how to put out the fire, how to resolve the issue at the earliest, how to restore back normalcy to the affected state and the people, how to redress the anguish and the pain of the victims. In the name of this protest and the counter-protests by another community, how many Christian churches were burned down? You have seen. Is this the way? That is something, religion is completely out of the purview of this agitation or the issue in question. But under the guise of one or the other issue, the hatred buried deep inside comes out. You see, this is not the way to resolve any issue among civilized people. So it is very sad. Our hearts go out to the people of Manipur, and we hope that they will resolve the issue at the earliest. Yeah.
Does the state government have any